Hey crafty babes, welcome back to my channel. Thanks for spending a little bit of time with me here. I am getting ready to show you part number 2 of one of my 2023 notebooks. This is where I do my memory keeping, and I have already shown a part 1 which takes you through all of this part. Well, I did have some more room, so I added some more pages. We're going to go through that, and then there's going to be a part 3 because I have already almost filled up an entire second notebook, and I'm working on a third. So we've been busy making pages, and I'm excited to share it with you. So here is where we left off on this page here of just some grid pages. I may not even have shown this one, but I know that we got through this area here. So this was an attempt at me coming kind of back to scrapbooking. I took like a few weeks of like not really crafting for myself, not memory keeping, and just needed a little place to kind of have some photos and some supplies that were new to me, and just had a good color scheme. And sometimes that's just where there's not really a purpose to the page. I do that a lot. Like, just because I call this memory keeping doesn't necessarily mean that I am recalling a memory or documenting a memory or even documenting anything really important. At this point, this book is really just a place for me to be super creative, whether that's, a grid layout like this with photos or just some stamping practice. I really just love it being a catch-all. So sometimes I just need to get back into it, and I found some really cute supplies that kind of just go with the photos here that I took on my piano of these new posters that I made and have been using for summer decor in my house. And so I combined some issue number 30 printables and a floral that I made for Bold Faith, which I have in the Illustrated Faith shop, a couple of little vellum pieces from I think this is a Pink Fresh kit that I bought for spring and summertime, and just kind of had some fun doing some layering and spreading some color out. And I really love how this turned out, and it just turned out to be something that kind of got me warmed up. This is not what I would consider a warm-up craft. I kind of tried to force myself into this, and I ended up having fun. Here is a page. I'm not necessarily like in love with this, but this is kind of one of those where I was working on getting some memories down and a little bit of journaling. And this was like, I was not in my groove, but I had these pictures and these supplies set aside to go together, and kind of pulled some older stamps. Like this is an issue number 28 stamp. This is like a spring stamp from Carrie Bradford. And just pulled some things together. It is not much, but sometimes you just need something simple, and memories are there, so it's all good. I really wanted to try to get back to some weekly recaps or some monthly recaps, kind of like I've shown before, where I have like some misfit photos where they didn't necessarily need their own stories and they didn't get their own pages, and so they kind of just got put into a pile, and that's kind of what's happening here. So these are photos that kind of just didn't make it anywhere else. They didn't make the cut for regular pages, and so I'm doing just kind of a March recap. And I went back into my stash and grabbed some old color cast designs, wood pieces, and a big huge printout from the Lily Pad and their monthly kits. This is probably from like last spring, so it was nice to kind of pull from my stash and use some things that had just kind of I've been passing them over for a while. And I kept the supplies very neutral because there's just so many colorful differences in these photos, and that's what's really nice about having a bit of a neutral element to your stash, is not everything is going to be color matchy. And so it's nice to have just some neutrals for an instance like this. I really love how this page turned out. It did take me a while to kind of figure out where everything belonged and where it fit, because I was using some non-traditional shapes and smaller photos, and so, but for this is just kind of like one of my kind of go-to layouts where I've got just everything kind of across a horizontal band here. And then I kind of use the extra space to add the embellishments and stuff. So with this layout, I ended up kind of shifting the card bases up and down, and then just kind of had to decide where all of the orange was going to go and how it was going to balance out with the pinks. And there's really no, you know, not a huge story. Again, this is just kind of documenting. I had a cute outfit on, and I used this is just an absolute favorite stamp set of mine. I have no idea if it's still available. It's probably 3 years old, but it's from Everyday Explorers Co. And it's just like an outfit stamp, outfit of the day stamp. It is fabulous. And there's just always a room for documenting how you dress, because it's one of those things that when I think to myself, oh my gosh, girlfriend, really, you're so vain that you are going to document like an outfit that you wore one day. But I think about it as I would have loved to have seen the things that my mom wore or the things that my grandma wore. And now my boys are not going to give two rips about me wearing a cute pair of overalls, but maybe their wives or their kids might. And that's just something that I use when I'm documenting things that seem a little trivial. So just something to think about. I haven't done a single photo page in a really long time, but I had all of these papers kind of grouped together because as I was going through my stash about a year ago, I had kind of started making little piles. This was before I was really making page kits regularly, and I was just kind of putting supplies together as I felt like they would go together. And these have been in my like little bucket of of pages that I want to make with no picture attached to it, just the papers. And so when I was kind of digging through and cleaning some stuff out, I thought, oh my gosh, I have a great picture that would go with this. And it just turned out great. So this is a me and my week layout where I basically just have the journaling that I take directly from Instagram, my Instagram post for this week. And that's just where I get a lot of my journaling. If there's a photo that I felt like was post worthy, I've probably got a caption or some sort of memory attached to that caption. And I'm most likely going to use that so that I'm not rewriting things. Because basically if I post something, I'm going to say what I wanted to say about it. And that really helps me since, you know, words are not like my strong suit. So anyway, I just layered a bunch of stuff, and I used my Sunshine Numbers stamp and basically just cut out my own numbers because I knew I wasn't going to get the exact color yellow to stamp on this section. And I also knew that I could get a yellow that was close and that I could stamp it on a piece of white cardstock and then cut it out with a little white background, and that would have looked really good. But I really just love this yellow and how you know it can move in multiple places. So I had a little bit extra, and I ended up just I stamped a mask, I turned the paper over, I traced the mask, and then I cut it out so that the numbers were correct. So week number 21, here is my page. And of course I had to document the goats coming back to the creek bed behind my house this year. It was such a surprise. They came for such a short amount of time in comparison to last year, and so I just spent my spring mornings, a couple of days that they were out there, out watching them and taking pictures of them and just enjoying listening and having something fun to look at. So I basically just did a little bit of a grid kind of situation here. I had 3x4 cards, a 4x6 card, and then smaller photos. So I just found a way to kind of collage them all together. And knowing that I wanted to use some like, you know, plant life foliage, because the reason that they're out there is to eat away at a lot of the underbrush and a lot of the foliage and stuff out there that can catch fire. And so basically it could become a fire hazard. So the city hires you know, a farm that has hundreds of goats, and they rent them out all over town. And so the goats go through and they eat fields and they eat empty lots and they eat back, you know, back brush areas throughout town, so that we don't, you know, we don't have fire hazards. And it's just wonderful because they're literally like right at my gate, right at my back fence. It's so lovely. And then I've got a before shot where it's just full of lush green, you know, leaves and weeds and stuff. And then after, it's just dirt. It's crazy amazing to watch. This is another, I know I just did week 21 of my Me and My Week, but I also had a few extra photos that kind of didn't really make it into my personal, you know, like week documenting. And so I went way, way, way back in my stash and probably have had this little card from Kelly Stamps, which she's not even selling stamps anymore for like the last few years, or maybe just a couple of years. But I just had some 3 extra photos, so I thought that I would just, again, dig in my stash, find some really fun older items. These are from Vanessa Walker, and I think this is from Brandy Kincaid when she did an illustrated faith kit a while back. And I just used like the greens and the black and white kind of feel because that's how these photos felt. I used some clear sticker paper for these 1, 2, 3s. They were all part of an older illustrated faith set, and then I used my Be Bold stamp to just like use this little border area, or this border stamp for just a couple of places that needed a little color. And yeah, that was super fun. And then an old, I don't know, December daily maybe, like felt star. I don't know, it was cute and it matched, so that's what we're doing. So at this point I've got one more in this, and this is my handmade skirt that I made over the springtime. It was so much fun. I basically just used a skirt that I owned as a pattern, and I used it because I loved it. I loved the length of it. I loved, you know, the elastic waistband felt like something that I could manage. And yeah, I made my own skirt and it was really fun. And so of course I had to document it, and I had this really cute Kelly Bangs card. And then I actually ended up using some other things from older stamp sets of mine, newer stamp sets of mine, and yeah, just kind of did the whole bright pink, pale pink thing. I think it really worked here. So I have a couple of extra pages in here. I'm not going to fill them in, so most likely I'll just take them out. They're in the back, which is great because that's where I can disassemble. Actually, no, I can't. You have to disassemble from the front. So these are just going to stay here, or I'm going to rip them out and use them for something else. So if you have not seen part 1 of my 2023 book, go ahead and check out that video. It's here on YouTube. And stay tuned for part 3, where we get into book number 2. Thanks for being here. I'll talk to you guys soon.